Chairman, thank you. Let me first say to all of you, thank you for the work that you're doing. You don't hear that enough. There are a lot of threats, and you face a lot of things, and you go through a lot of information each and every day for the sake of our nation and for the people in my state in Oklahoma, and we appreciate that very much. Yesterday, we had an event in Oklahoma City that we just called Day One. It was an event that is 168 days away from the 25th anniversary of the Murrah building bombing in 1995. 25 years ago, we lost 168 Oklahomans, many of them federal employees and their families, many of them children. And we remember distinctly well what domestic terrorism looks like in Oklahoma City, and we have not forgotten about that. So from all of us and for the families and the people that I live around, we want to say thank you that you are staying vigilant in this because we do not take domestic terrorism lightly. So with that, let me ask you an unfair question. As you look at your time that you have to spend and the threats that you face right now, give me a percentage of threats that you face based on domestic terrorism and acts and international terrorism that are coming. Is that 60-40? Is it 50-50? Is it 70-30? And I know, again, it's an unfair question, but give me your best guess of what you're tracking right now.
Are you asking specifically about within the terrorism threats or about all threats writ large?
Within terrorism threats.
I would think we are probably roughly half and half international domestic on the terrorism front right now. Certainly the number of arrests that we had in fiscal 19 was, I think, 107 domestic terrorism arrests, 121 international terrorism arrests. The investigations of domestic terrorism, probably about 900 right now, say. About 1,000 HVEs, homegrown violent extremists. Now, we do have other foreign terrorist organization investigations, so there's probably more investigations on the international terrorism side, but that gives you a little bit of a sense of it.
Right, that helps. When you identify the different types of international terrorism threats that are coming into the United States or that have a threat that you can identify coming towards the United States, is there a certain ideology that seems to be more typical for international foreign threats coming at the United States?
Well, of course, we're looking at both Sunni and Shia threats, but I think in terms of the most immediate lethality, it's the Sunni threats that are the ones that are more concerning. I'm sure Director Travers may have a few things to add to that, but you know, in particular, the ISIS-inspired attackers here. These are people who are not necessarily, didn't get up in the morning true believers, but kind of spend time online, radicalize, and essentially have latched onto an ideology as an excuse to commit crude but very lethal attacks against often soft targets using easily accessible weapons. That's probably the biggest threat to the homeland.
Right. Senator Rosen and I have worked on an anti-Semitism task force to continue to be able to bring up some of the issues of domestic terrorism and threats, as has been already named the threat that was just confronted this past weekend in Colorado towards one of the synagogues there. There's a growing sense of ideology in multiple different areas, and we're grateful that you're continuing to be able to engage foreign as well as domestic. Let me shift topics just slightly on that because I want to get a feel for where we were on that. Let me shift to election security. This has been an ongoing issue that Congress continues to be able to address. We've talked about multiple times with the Department of Homeland Security and their responsibility to be able to address election security. This Congress allocated $380 million in election security funding in 2018 to states, but as the last time that I tracked those numbers, not even half of that money has been spent by the states yet. Do you have a good estimate at this point what the states have spent from the $380 million that Congress allocated to deal with election security, and how do you evaluate the status of preparation for election security right now?
Senator, as the head of intelligence, I'll have to get back to you on the state's allocation of those resources that we've sent them. So we'll take that for a question for the record to come back with you. Regarding the execution of what we're doing within the department, you're very aware of the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency that's run by Director Chris Krebs has had an aggressive partnership with all 50 state election officials and territories. In the lead up to the 2018 election, we conducted over 1,400 field interviews and engagements directly with state officials Just to give you an idea of our production as far as intelligence sharing directly with the states, classified and unclassified. In the lead up to the 2016 election, we did 24 intelligence reports. In the lead up to the 2018 election, through my office, we did 313. And we're going to do quite a bit more as the lead up to the 2020. We're looking at attacks on the critical infrastructure of the election systems, but then also, as Director Wray has mentioned as well, is we're really looking at that foreign influence campaign, that covert influence, how the use of social media, the amplifying effect to try to affect elections, but any range of things that could be used at by threat actors at the state and local level, not just the federal level.
Do you have what you need at this point to be able to help secure the elections?
Senator, I welcomed a discussion and going back with my colleagues in the department to have an answer for that. But I can say from the department, we are aggressively posturing our resources in partnership with the FBI, in partner with all of the other U.S. intelligence community assets as well on specific collection requirements they have regarding what our vulnerabilities are. And then I would just like to highlight that we are in over 80 fusion centers, as we mentioned earlier, as an information touch point, and I create the information sharing enterprise, the backbone of the technical infrastructure, which is the Homeland Security Information Network, which I have to thank, and I know you're not appropriation, but you guys have funded and authorized us to use that, and that's been a fantastic information tool.
Thank you. Director Wray, I need to ask you a question that I don't need a specific answer for. We can get into a classified setting and go through greater depth on this. When American individuals travel to Russia or China, there seems to be ample number of individuals to be able to track them and to be able to follow them and to be able to make sure that they're aware of all of their movements. I've yet to be able to talk to an American yet that's traveled to China or Russia and said, yeah, they ran out of people to be able to trail me. Do you have the resources that you need for individuals that you have suspicion on that are Chinese nationals or Russian nationals currently in the United States to be able to make sure that we have coverage at the level that is needed for individuals that there's highest suspicion?
I can tell you that our counterintelligence program is an area where we are in need of growth and resources, not just agents and analysts, but linguists, and we need more data analytics. All of these issues, including on the one that you're mentioning, in today's world involve terabytes and terabytes of data, and in order to be able to be agile, to exploit that quickly and effective, we need to have the right tools to be able to get through that information. And so we have, I know the President's budget request, has requests in that category, but I can assure you that that's the kind of thing that would be put to great use quickly.
That's great. Thank you.